The hallowed rooms of learning were laid vacant as staff, students and the odd mystery guest invaded the playing fields of Muswellbrook High School. The annual fun day aims to raise funds for improvements to the school from landscaping to equipment. The only equipment needed today was a good sense of humour, as the events were reasonably obscure. Take the case of Jeff Doyle, celebrated centre for the Newcastle Knights on his second crusade to the Brook. A warm welcome from the student body, and then thrust into combat with his team. Easy pickings, the kicking competition, and a quick bit of gardening with the wheelbarrow. Debbie Spillane got into the act, thoroughly enjoying a dry Sayo biscuit and a cup of water. And also the odd sports commentator doing his bit for the drought in the Upper Hunter by watering the fields, and displaying appalling ability with a hockey stick. Other obscure games included Pictionary, blindfolded show jumping, pillow fights and maths tests, which the teachers seemed to have a lot of difficulty with. All in all, a lot of fun, and around $2,000 will be raised from today and the social events of this evening. But what a way to earn a quid.
Redhead tip is on borrowed time, and Lake Macquarie Mayor Ivan Welsh says the present rates of dumping are cutting further into its lifespan.
I think we'd be looking at like 18 months to 2 years maximum.
To help prolong the life of the tip to 1994, Lake Macquarie City Council has decided that as of July 1st, commercial dumpers can't use the Redhead site. Instead, commercial users will have to travel to the council's Awabba tip on the western side of the lake. But 5 waste contractors, including 2 of the region's biggest, Waste Hawk and Cleanaway, have put their case with a letter to council. In the letter, the contractors argue that by having to dump at Awabba, there will be an additional travelling distance of about 50 kilometres, more heavy vehicles will be using the roads in the West Lakes residential areas, and there'll be an increase in operating costs of about 20%. None of the 5 contractors who signed this letter agreed to be interviewed on camera, but one operator said council was using the contractors as a scapegoat to buy more time over the Redhead dump issue. Ken Owens, from a group called CARE that's fighting for Redhead Tip's closure, agrees that council is passing the buck.
They're only going to drag it out with domestic waste, and I think they're penalising the compactors. They've been coming here for 17 years and they cut them off of the mismanagement of the bureaucracy of the council in putting this on them in such a short notice. It's pathetic.
Mayor Welsh says council shouldn't have to pick up the bill for moving commercial dumping to Awabba. But one small operator, Jeff Stokes from Enviro Movers, says the extra costs eventually hit the consumer.
I will have to charge a fraction more. I'll probably have to put my prices up to accommodate the extra travelling, and just that's all I think I can do. Otherwise, bearing the cost myself, it just probably put me out of business.
We've been through one heck of a year. We had an enormous flood, immediately followed by a drought that we're only just starting to come out of. But it certainly pulled the community together. It's been a fascinating exercise, and over the course of that year, it's knitted that community together.
It was August last year. Flood rains tore through the Burralong Valley south of Wollombi, ripping out thousands of tonnes of soil, creating giant landslips and dramatically enlarging gullies. The valley is a retreat for 37 families, 2/3 of those weekenders who visit from Sydney. In their limited experience on the land, they had seen nothing like this, let alone know how to control it. The locals admit government groups such as Landcare have given excellent practical advice and guidance. $40,000 of the landowner's money was spent on tree planting, dozer work and fence building. Over the last 10 months, brook banks were changed from this to this. Gullies savaged by the downpour were smoothed out and are now better prepared for the next flood. But while there have been some rewards, the locals say with funding support, they can do a lot more. And that's where the political problems begin. According to Burralong resident James Lang Peach, promises of money through land care are being swamped by paperwork.
We've done something like 3 submissions now, which have taken days at a time to do, and they're looking at 18 months before we'll get down to 18 months from when it went in, before we'll see that back. As I say, we need that money now to continue the program. Thousands of trees have gone in, we've done all this sort of soil work, but we need to keep that going.
A spokesman for Landcare admitted there has been some time problems, but said the government was trying to maximise funding from different sources. He said there isn't a lot of money to be allocated and said several committees were needed to make sure funds were well spent. At Burralong Valley, thousands of poplars and willow trees have been planted, 6 kilometres of fencing built to keep cattle out of the eroded area. Water Resources has also helped building weirs on Wollombi Brook to ease water flow. With limited financing, the residents of this tiny valley are making progress.
What do you put the success down to the work you've done here? Is it motivation?
Oh yes, people, getting people together and recognising a problem that most of us wouldn't have realised was a problem, and then working out how to fix it. And we've had some terrific practical help, but we want to get on with it.
The rare chance to see a kidney and learn a little about its important role as a filter to the body captured the attention of Thursday night shoppers at Charlestown Square. Volunteer medical staff conducted blood pressure and urine tests, advising people of any telltale signs of trouble. There was a display of artificial kidneys and a dialysis machine used for cleansing the blood. Such units provide a lifeline to more than 100 Hunter people whose kidneys don't function. 30 of those are waiting for transplants. Australia's best-known organ transplant recipient, Fiona Coote, attended as one who's received the gift of life. Kidney Week calls for people to tick the donor consent section of their driver's licences.
With 28 points generally regarded as the minimum required to make the semi-finals, the Knights need 19 out of a possible 24 still up for grabs, so this Sunday's battle against fourth-placed Manly is of extreme importance. When you're winning, everyone's your mate. When you lose, everyone is quick to add their 2 bobs worth of free advice. And today it flowed freely from an old foe of the Knights.
What I've been critical of is the way they've been playing. When they run one out off the ruck, as far as they can, tackle, get to their feet, do that 4 times and kick on the 6th, that's bullshit football. And I don't think with the backline that you've got up here, you've got people in your backline who can score tries. And I think that Alan McMahon is going to make a readjustment, and I think he will, and I hope it's not this weekend, I hope he'll institute some changes whereby your backs will get more opportunities, because you've got the backs that can do it.
And heaven forbid the Moose actually tips the Knights to win. Alan McMahon has made some changes that adds more pace around the ruck, with centre Robbie McCormick moving to the hooking position, Steve Fulmer at half-back, and a fit Tony Kemp moves to the centres. Hard at work surveying the field of combat, McCormick is not fazed by his switch to the forwards.
Oh, it's a new challenge. It should be good fun in where the action is all the time, so I think I'll enjoy the role.
And his workmate, tough as teak utility Glenn Miller, hasn't lost sight of the task ahead.
We're up this week to prove that we're a contention for the 5, so I don't think we're going to let them down.
What do you think of the makeup of the side?
Mate, it's good. Robbie's chased me into the forwards. We work together, now we're playing together again, so that's good. I reckon he'll go well.
.56 districts and more than 110 teams will take to the courts in 3 days of strenuous competition. Newcastle last hosted the titles in 1987 and in 88 held the State A's Championships. To the hard-working committee, it means more than just promoting netball.
It means a lot of prestige, obviously the most important event in the New South Wales netball calendar. To be able to attract those type of people to come to Newcastle is a real plus. And of course too, we hope that a lot of people in the city will take their line from us and go forward and bring other national events here.
Well, the Netball Championships aren't the only major sporting event happening in our area this weekend. Of course, our other basketball team, the Newcastle Falcons, have been under siege this week with a Jerry Everett situation. However, tonight they have a chance to turn their form around with a match against the Gold Coast. Then they go to Sydney tomorrow night to play the Kings. Those two matches will be a tall order for the out-of-form Falcons. After the drama of the week, the Falcons' thoughts must now switch to the real purpose, playing basketball. The Gold Coast is now in third position on the ladder, and they will be a tough challenge tonight. Tomorrow night, the Falcons have to back up against their traditional rivals, the Sydney Kings. And in the past couple of weeks, the Bob Turner coach Kings have found form and will be hard to beat. Continuing to build on its already awesome reputation, the Newcastle District Bowling Association will host the state pennant finals in the district this weekend, with the number one final scheduled for the Beresfield Club on Monday. Nobby's Beach is the venue for the final round of the Aquatech Inshore Rescue Boat Championship, with crews from all over the state chasing the lucrative pot of gold up for grabs. And on Lake Macquarie near Rathmines, the annual Polar Bear Catamaran Regatta has attracted one of the biggest and classiest fields ever assembled for the Dash for Cash. While just around the corner at the Royal Motor Yacht Club, sail power is swapped for horsepower, as inboards and outboards strut their stuff in the Queen's Birthday Weekend Regatta, with the Ken Waggett Memorial and the Alan Hatherall just two of the big events to be decided.
Catherine, who asked not to be identified, has been using the financial counselling service for about 8 months. She says it has saved her business and her marriage.
We would have gone into bankruptcy because we just couldn't pay any of the bills and couldn't pay our mortgage. We owed quite a bit of money to our creditors, and that's when Jennifer approached them and wrote them letters and sort of acted as the middleman, which took pressure off us, which sort of helped us with our marriage as well, because we were at each other's throat a bit.
Hers is not an isolated case. Counsellor Jennifer Gracie has had at least 80 clients on her files for the last 12 months.
We're getting about 25 new clients every month. At least half of those are ongoing cases. I've had referrals from Muswellbrook, Cessnock, Newcastle. They've all come here because the federal court gives them our name and number.
But it's this voluntarily run tea kitchen that pays her wages. State and federal funding dried up last month, and the service has been surviving hand to mouth ever since.
We're talking about $26,000 per annum, which takes to employ a trained counsellor to conduct a service to cover the area that we currently cover.
The Gosford City Community and Information Centre is keeping the service afloat on a month-to-month basis. If the cash registers at the tea kitchen stop clicking over, the bankruptcy courts could start overflowing.
Certainly there'll be a higher increase of bankruptcies. There will be an even greater increase than we already have in our community of people losing their homes and being sold over their heads.
Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Owing to inclement weather last week, the final was held over until today, and around 200 spectators braved similar conditions to watch the intense final between Lagusa and Jim Dwyer of the Engadine Club in Sydney's south. Both bowlers had played brilliantly in sectional play and the semi-finals to make the decider, but it was the Cahaiba bowler Sam Lagusa who maintained his form to run out the winner 31 shots to 23. Lagusa has a real affinity with the Halikalani Greens, winning 2 prestigious singles crowns in years gone by, and today he was never in any serious trouble against Dwyer, a former winner of this event.
It sounds simple at first, but it is in fact a pretty tall order. The trolleys with no stored power source must survive a 3-metre drop to a concrete floor, then carry a drink can to a point 8 metres away. The second-year mechanical and industrial engineering students went to work with ratchets, springs, fishing reels and in this case a blind roller to construct their contraption. Most relied on inertia from the drop to power their vehicles. Others borrowed stroller wheels and tried snap release mechanisms. But the all-important cargo had to arrive at its destination intact. There was a jump-start launch ramp version. Well, back to the drawing board with it, and this Meccano monster, at first a reluctant starter, but then there was no stopping it. The assignment tested the students' ingenuity. Their rigs will now compete against others from around the state in Sydney. Some are already tasting the success of their labours.
"56 associations are fielding around 112 teams for the state titles, bringing to Newcastle over 4,000 players and officials, in addition to thousands of spectators. Under overcast skies, the opening ceremony was a spectacular sight as each district displayed their banner, quietly confident they would be victorious after 3 days of strenuous competition. Karinga's Natalie Avellino received an early surprise, named the recipient of the Anne Clark Scholarship, and was the founding president of the New South Wales Netball Association, and the $1,000 scholarship will help Natalie continue her training at the Australian Institute of Sport. The Lord Mayor of Newcastle was on hand to utter those important words at the start of any titles. It was a game that had everything, super shooting from all parties and dunks aplenty. Paul Kuiper, 16 points and 2 huge dunks to ignite the vocal crowd. James Bullock, sadly out of touch in recent weeks, turned in a man-of-the-match 33-point effort and he was flying high. And Mike Mitchell set the stadium alight with a couple of gems and a little bit of flamboyance. But that all paled into insignificance compared to the closing sequence of events. The Gold Coast led 99-97 with 2 seconds left in the match. Michael Johnson had missed with his first of 2 free throws. As the ball left his hand, Grant Kruger raced through the key and tapped in what looked like a legitimate basket. But the referee called a foot violation on Kruger for entering the area too soon. Videotape backs the Falcons and they missed the chance of the match going into extra time, something that Kruger and a couple of other Falcons reminded the referees of in no uncertain manner. Final score, the Gold Coast Rollers 99, the Newcastle Falcons 97. In sloppy conditions, the boot of Waratah's young fullback Paul Shealy proved the difference, Shealy landing 4 penalty goals. Prop Terry Stevenson crashed over for an early Tars try off a Graham Russell short ball. Lakes weren't in the race until late in the match when Brett Botham found some space and he raced in to make the scoreline 12-4 in favour of the McDonald's Jones Cheetahs. Newcastle is playing host this weekend to the state's top lawn bowlers who are contesting the New South Wales No. 1 Pennants final. The Windale Gateshead, Adamstown, Hexham and Raymond Terrace clubs are hosting 16 clubs from all over the state in sectional play today and tomorrow, with the semi-finals and finals set down for the Beresfield Club on Monday. Newcastle's representation in the number 1 pennant final is the Cahaiba Club, and they were engaged at the Windale Gateshead Club up against Old Foes Maitland City. Defending champions Grandviews from Sydney will again be the club to beat. Record entries have been received for the Queen's Birthday Weekend Regatta at the Toronto Powerboat Club, and if today's racing on mill pond conditions is any indication, we are in for a top 3 days racing. The craft vary from 25 horsepower boats to ski boats to pure racing machines that fly around the triangular course at breakneck speeds. The Ken Waggett and Alan Hatherill Memorials are just 2 of the big races, with the Northern Districts Championship attracting some of the quickest boats in the land.
Hairdresser Raquel Goose of the Sheer Heavens Salon in the Hunter Village was alone in the shop at about 11:30 this morning when her ordeal began.
I was standing over there cleaning up, and the man came to the front desk, and I just come and asked, may I help him? And he just lifted up his flannelette shirt and started to pull a knife out of his pocket. And as he was doing it, a client of mine was out of... I sort of just started to... I could feel myself my stomach start to shake, but that's all. I didn't really think of anything. I was just sort of blank.
But the robbery was abandoned when the offender heard a customer coming.
A client of mine was out at the ladies and she closed the back door and it slammed a little bit, and then he quickly went out the shop.
Since the robbery, the police have been patrolling the streets. They're fearful that since this attempt failed, the offender might try again.
Looking for a male in his late 20s, about 170 centimetres tall, with long shoulder-length brown wavy hair, short on top, wearing a blue flannelette shirt and dark blue jeans.
Coach Ken Cole today wrote to the NBL asking for a full review of the match video.
Now we've got to review the tape, I guess, and have a look whether 2 baskets that were credited at 3-point shots should have only been 2-point buckets. If that is the case, then there probably are grounds for a protest. At the moment, we'll just ask them to review the tape.
The Falcons were initially upset that this sensational last-second tip-in by Grant Kruger was disallowed, but Cole admits there's no chance that decision will be reversed. If the stats bench is found to be at fault, though, there may be a precedent for a rematch.
A season or 2 ago, there was a problem in Illawarra, and the game was replayed, if memory serves me correctly, on an incorrect 3-point call. It was shown clearly on the tape to be incorrect.
The weekend also marked the debut of new American import Troy Trevelyan. Cole says the point guard showed plenty of promise against a powerful Sydney lineup and should fit nicely into the Falcons program.
I think he'll be a tremendous asset, good ball handler, great attitude. I think he'll be a real organiser for us on the floor, and it should free Al Green up to be even more dangerous than he's been. And I think he's the sort of player that's going to help Mike Johnson well and truly get right back into the flow.
Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
The University's Student Representative Council has been lobbying for improved transport to and from the university for years. Most recently, they hijacked a train travelling from Maitland to Newcastle, making it stop at the rear of the university, where they believe a rail station should be built. The students now have the support of Council in their campaign to have State Rail build a station at Warrabrook. State Rail has agreed to look at the feasibility. An evaluation study should be completed by the end of this week. Newcastle Council also last night decided to organise an employment summit in the city. Heads of private enterprise and the public sector will be invited to attend in an effort to attract employment opportunities to the region. With unemployment in the area at 11.2%, Council is concerned by the growing number of jobless. In other council news, a call for a referendum on the future of the Frederick Ash building was overwhelmingly rejected. Alderman Ashley Saunders believes the people of Newcastle should have a say in whether the heritage-listed building in Hunter Street is demolished or not. But it appears all other aldermen would rather keep the building's future a council matter.